discontinued doll lines that you've never heard of. If there's one thing that unites us all, it's the fact that we had a favorite toy as a kid. Maybe it was a Beanie Baby, or a Bionicle, or a Barbie. Either way, you were guaranteed to be having a boatload of fun. I was a doll kid myself, and I might be biased, but the 2000s were arguably the best time to be one. Besides the variety of dolls being unmatched, the accompanying media was next level, with dozens of movies, interactive websites, video games, and TV shows being created to market these tiny fashion icons. The doll industry has been a formidable force for decades, and over the years we've seen companies try all sorts of wacky ideas in an attempt to get a slice of that multi-billion-dollar pie. Some of these experiments have been bona fide successes, others crashed and burned, and many vanished without a trace. In today's video, we're going to be taking a trip down memory lane and revisit some of the forgotten doll lines of the past. We'll be taking a look at how they were created, their unique selling points, any accompanying media, and why they eventually faded from the spotlight. Let's get into it. Trollz. Odds are you're familiar with the Good Luck Trollz, the tiny plastic toy with crazy hair and beady eyes that have become a staple of yard sales and thrift stores. Created by Danish woodcutter Thomas Dam in 1959, his dolls were inspired by Scandinavian folklore, and originally came with 3 hair colors, white, black, and orange. After being released internationally in 1960, Dam's troll dolls quickly became a hit in the US, and at one point it was even estimated that Americans spent over $100,000 a month on Trolls-related products. However, because of a loophole in US copyright law, they were considered public domain, and several other brands soon began selling similar toys, with Lucky Schnooks and Wishnicks flooding the market. Although the Trolls were a huge success upon their release, their popularity died down in the 1980s before returning with a vengeance in the 1990s. You can thank nostalgia for that one. Because Dam's US copyright still wasn't valid, making counterfeit troll dolls was technically legal in the early 90s, so several companies decided to cash in on the doll's signature unruly appearance, with some of the most blatant imitations including the Treasure Trolls, Trollkins, Baby Trolls, Norphin Trolls, Totally Trolls, Magic Trolls, and Sweetheart Trolls. Because the original troll doll style was seen as feminine, more macho iterations of the dolls were created to appeal to young boys, like the Battle Trolls, Stone Protectors, Troll Force, and the Troll Warriors.
Every little girl loves little trolls, but what do guys wish for?
Several board games, TV shows, video games, and comic books were also made to accompany these faux trolls, and sales among the top 3 manufacturers grew to $700 million annually in 1992. Trolls were so popular that even major brands like Barbie, Fruity Pebbles, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles joined in on the fun with random Trolls products. But sadly, Dam's company found themselves struggling to compete, even coming close to bankruptcy. But after a lengthy legal battle, they finally managed to restore their copyright in 1996. This officially put an end to the knockoff troll dolls, but by then, troll mania had subsided. In 2004, Dam's Good Luck Trolls were licensed to DIC Entertainment, who relaunched and rebranded them as Trollz with a Z. This began with an animated TV show in 2005 that was accompanied by a line of dolls manufactured by Hasbro. The show followed the adventures of 5 stylish friends living in Trollzopolis, a regular old city with shopping malls, crowded highways, and monsters. The group, called the Best Friends for Life, have magic powers that they use to stop evildoers, but sometimes they can't resist using them to try to solve their own problems, which usually backfires. If you were a fan of the Winx Club or the Life and Times of Juniper Lee, you should check this show out because they're kind of similar. The show's theme song, It's a Hair Thing, was performed by the Valley Girls, a short-lived girl group that just so happened to feature 2 of the Hyam sisters. While Trolls of the 90s were influenced by the action figure craze, the Trolls of the 2000s were inspired by the growing popularity of fashion dolls. Designed with young girls in mind, the new Trolls were given longer limbs, unique hairstyles, bejeweled belly buttons, and made-up faces, making them look less toddler-like and more like trendy teenagers. I've seen some people compare their new look to Bratz, but they remind me more of Fashion Polly, which was another contemporary update on a decades-old toy. Because they were originally created for a TV show, these were some of the first official troll dolls to actually have names. The 5 main characters were Amethyst Vandertroll, Ruby Trollman, Sapphire Trollzawa, Topaz Trollhopper, and Onyx von Trollenberg, with each of their color palettes being inspired by the gemstone they got their name from. Speaking of gemstones, although all trolls of the 21st century have one on their stomachs, they weren't part of Thomas Dam's original design, and were actually an addition popularized by the knockoff treasure trolls of the 1990s.
Treasure trolls are the only trolls that have a jewel in their tummy that you can wish on. What would you wish for?
So that's ironic. Compared to some of the other doll lines we'll be talking about later on in the video, I feel like the look of the trolls was pretty well thought out. Their hair was unique and eye-catching, although admittedly it'd get ruined almost instantly, and their outfits were trendy while still matching the characters. The only thing I didn't love were the faces. The eyes are a bit too big and crazed, while the smiles, which yes are meant to pay homage to the original trolls, are kinda creepy. Like any half-decent toy line from the 2000s, the Trolls had a website, which was actually so popular that only 6 months after launching, they had over 1 million registered users. You could dress your own troll, take personality quizzes, read the history of Trollzopolis, chat with friends, and of course, play games. They also released a game for the Game Boy Advance, Trollz Hair Affair, which included classics like bubble shooting, a DDR knockoff, and memory matching. With the TV series seeing decent viewership, a second season was announced to be in development, but it never came to fruition, as the licensing deal between the Dam Company and DIC Entertainment fell through. In 2007, DIC sued Dam for $20 million for misrepresenting the impact of counterfeit dolls on the brand. The Dam Company countersued, accusing DIC of misrepresenting its financial status and harming the troll doll's image and reputation. What a mess. Trolls with a Z had an unfortunate end, but the Good Luck Trolls are still going strong today thanks to DreamWorks, who purchased the property in 2013, taking them in a more musical and colorful direction. Thai Girls. In April 2007, Thai Inc. released their latest creation onto the world, one that they hoped would become as big of a phenomenon as their Beanie Babies were in the 90s. The Thai Girls, GIRLZ, were a group of 14-inch soft sculpt dolls dressed in the latest fashions that could be mixed and matched. The original lineup consisted of 6 color-coded characters: Lovely Lola, Sassy Star, Dazzlin' Destiny, Rockin' Ruby, Sizzlin' Sue, and Punky Penny, who had unique personalities and aesthetics. Each doll came with an iconic Thai heart tag attached to them, which included a secret code that granted access to their website thaigirlz.com, a format that had been popularized by Webkinz a few years earlier. In fact, a lot of the Thai Girls marketing revolved around the idea that they were just like Webkinz, but cooler, and they were even priced competitively, with Thai Girls selling between $9.99 and $12.99. Once the secret code had been inputted, players would unlock a virtual version of their doll that they could dress up and take care of. But in order to fund this lifestyle, they'd have to play the website's games, with their scores equating to the virtual currency, Thai dollars. Those Thai dollars could then be spent at the mall on in-game clothing, furniture, and even food, all of which affected your avatar's cuteness score and mood. There was also a chat club, a forum where you could talk to other players who you could then add as a friend. Like Webkinz, the more Thai Girls products that you purchased in the real world, the more items you gained access to in-game. I'm not exactly sure when, but probably around 2008 or 2009, the site got a makeover, looking a bit more polished and giving the characters a more stereotypical dress-up game look. Similar to other fashion-focused toy websites, like myscene.com, you could also watch webisodes that featured the Thai Girls, with one of the only surviving cartoons showing the 6 original characters becoming a band and touring the world. Like the company's Beanie Babies, the Thai Girls were released in limited batches, with some being retired so others could be introduced, creating an artificial sense of scarcity in the hopes of driving up demand. In 2007, they released a total of 14 dolls, and added a dozen more in 2008, but by 2009 they'd slowed down their output and only released 8 new characters. But again, despite this pretty large roster that included Cool Kayla, Precious Paris, and Totally Troy, no more than 20 characters were ever available for purchase at the same time. Apart from the doll characters, you could also buy animals and clothing accessories, and some of the items were even sold exclusively at Justice, giving you a clear idea of the Thai Girls' intended demographic. In 2008, the Thai Girls had their first scandal after a scientific study revealed that their Jammin' Jenna dolls had tested positive for lead, resulting in a recall of the doll in Illinois. The troubles only continued from there, with the company receiving backlash in January 2009 following the release of their latest dolls, Marvelous Malia and Sweet Sasha. Yes, those names should sound familiar. In 2008, Barack Obama had just been elected President of the United States, and he and his family had become bona fide celebrities and pop culture icons, including his two daughters, Malia and Sasha, who were 10 and 7 at the time. Because of their names and the fact that they had darker skin, the press were quick to call the new Thai girls the Obama dolls, which eventually led to a response from the White House, with First Lady Michelle Obama's press secretary releasing a statement that it was, quote, inappropriate to use young private citizens for marketing purposes. Shortly after, Thai Inc. spokesperson Tanya Lundeen denied any connection to the real Malia and Sasha. Quote, there's nothing on the dolls that refers to the Obama girls. It wouldn't be fair to say that they're exact replications of these girls. They're not. Now, this wouldn't have been the first time that someone famous had served as the inspiration for a doll, like Mary-Kate and Ashley, but they at least gave permission for their likeness to be used. Using the Obamas as inspiration, no matter how vague, without their consent, feels a little gross. However, what I actually find more scandalous is the fact that it was the first and only time that the Thai girls released a black character, which is pretty ridiculous considering how diverse other doll lines were at the time. I mean, just look at the Groovy Girls lineup. Although they had initially insisted that the Obamas had no impact on the dolls, in February the company agreed to change their names and donate the profits to charity. Quote, in deference to the wishes of the first family, Thai Inc. has officially retired the Thai girls' names, Marvelous Malia and Sweet Sasha. While the names were inspired by this historic time in our nation's history, the dolls were not intended to bear the likeness of the first daughters. And so, Marvelous Malia became Marvelous Mariah, and Sweet Sasha became Sweet Sydney. While it's possible that Thai Inc. backed down because they didn't want to risk a lawsuit, some industry insiders have implied that the backlash was actually their plan all along, hoping that the publicity would bring more attention to their brand. What I find hilarious is that all of this happened the exact week the Obamas were moving into the White House. Surely there were bigger fish to fry. The final Thai Girls doll, Joyful Justice, was released in September 2010, more than a year after their previous doll had been introduced, a red flag in the toy world. Around the same time, Thai Inc. also experimented with another short-lived doll line, the Little Ones, who reused the names and appearances of different Thai girls, including Hip Hannah, Trendy Taylor, and Preppy Paige. Maybe they thought kids would be more interested in classic vinyl dolls instead of plushies. In hindsight, it seems like all the Thai girls really had going for them was a cool virtual world, so it makes sense that once those became less popular in the 2010s, the brand would similarly stagnate. And in 2013, the dolls were officially discontinued and the website was shut down. Scent Stars. In 2003, Morrison Entertainment Group, aka MEG, released Stink Blasters, a collection of 3-inch action figures with silly faces who released a foul stench when their heads were squeezed. The array of gag-worthy scents included earwax, anchovies, dog breath, blue cheese, rotten eggs, and BO. Despite the rather bizarre premise and complaints from parents, the toy fared fairly well with young boys in multiple countries, prompting MEG to later release a Stink Blasters air cannon and a flash game. If it were the 1980s, I guarantee they would have turned them into a full-blown cartoon. They tested out a single female Stink Blaster, Sweet Lip Susie, but found that neither boys nor girls were interested in her. Not wanting to miss out on the thriving girls' toy market, they created the Scent Stars in 2004, a companion line that featured female characters with cuter appearances and sweet scents. Compared to the Stink Blasters, who had fun names like Fishmouth Fred and Armpit Andy, the Scent Stars didn't seem as thought out, with generic characters like Cindy, Olivia, and Maggie. The first series of Scent Stars consisted of 12 dolls, whose scents included lemonade, peppermint, rose, cinnamon, orange, cookie, apple pie, bubblegum, vanilla, jasmine, baby powder, and popcorn. They later sold even smaller versions of the dolls that could be attached to hair clips, rings, and bracelets, and they were marketed as a fun way for young girls to get introduced to perfume. As far as I can tell, only one major playset was sold, the Scent Salon, which included stickers, accessories, and makeup that could be worn by both you and the doll, in addition to miniature furniture and more clothing. This is one of those dolls that I never would have bought as a kid, since I always considered the aesthetic more important than the gimmick, and these things are just a little too dinky looking. Yummi-land. the scent stars weren't the only toys that tried to appeal to kids through their sense of smell. In spring 2006, MGA Entertainment, best known for making the Bratz, released their Yummi-land dolls, with the first lineup of characters being called the Soda Pop Girls. There were 6 characters in this initial line: Gabby Grapealina, Susie Strawbella, Amanda Appletina, Belinda Banana Anna, Chelsea Cherry Lynn, and Bonnie Bluebella, who were dressed up and scented like the fruit they took their names from. Visually, it was like if the Fantanas were being marketed to kindergarteners instead of teenagers. Having your dolls themed around food was by no means a new idea. Just look at Strawberry Shortcake and her friends. But Yummi-land took their scents in a more artificial direction with the soda pop angle. Considering more than half of American children in the 2000s were drinking a soda a day, the Yummi-land dolls were a true product of their time. And I'd bet that if they'd been released just 5 years later, MGA would have received complaints from parents about the dolls promoting unhealthy foods. Each doll came with a flavored lip gloss and a Littlest Pet Shop-esque animal companion, with both being packaged in a soda bottle that doubled as a stand. On the inside of the soda bottle cap were secret messages which had simple phrases like, "You're so sweet," or "Keep your eye on the gumball." The dolls were described as having a sweet tooth for style, but I personally think the company was paying more attention to the scent gimmick than it was the clothing. Between 2006 and 2008, they released several additional lines that introduced new groups of scented characters with different pop themes. There were the Cream Soda Pop Girls, the Candy Pop Girls, the Flower Pop Girls, the Ice Cream Pop Girls, the Smoothie Pop Girls, the Sundae Pop Girls, and the Snow Cone Pop Girls. I probably like the Flower Pop Girls most, even if it makes the least amount of sense. Pun intended. In 2007, a direct-to-video movie, Betsy Bubblegum's Journey Through Yummi-land, was released, which followed the titular ice cream pop character on a trip to Yummi-land, where she meets a bunch of new friends from different Yummi-land lines. The movie is pretty generic, with nothing apart from vibes and giggles moving the story forward, but it does look cute, even if the characters are basically identical. Compared to some other doll websites of the time, Yummi-land was pretty simple, having coloring pages and e-cards and a handful of free flash games. There was Sweet Stylin', where you gave the Soda Pop Girls a makeover, Kitty Cat Catch, where you had to catch items as they fell from the sky, Bubble Batch Bottle Catch, where you had to match the color of a bubble to a bottle, and Bottle Hunt, a scavenger hunt type game. 2 additional lines, the Gumdrop Pop Girls and Tropical Fruit Punch Girls, were in development, but the brand was discontinued in mid-2008 before they were able to go to market, which is a shame, because I think the Fruit Punch Girls were actually a pretty fun concept. I mean, papaya, pineapple, passion fruit, and mango, sign me up. In 2014, Yummi-land made a partial return, but in a pretty unconventional way. At the time, MGA Entertainment's other doll line, Moxie Girls, was on its last legs, and as if they had nothing left to lose, they decided to experiment with a Moxie Girls line inspired by the Yummi-land dolls. These 6 new characters no longer had the distinctive pop element associated with Yummi-land. Instead, they were just themed around different ice cream flavors. And worst of all, they didn't even have a scent. A decade later, the Yummi-land dolls were rebooted, this time as an extension of Num Noms, another MGA scented toy line. Sadly, the pop theme was once again abandoned, but they did bring back a different element of the original generation, lip gloss. The 6 new characters included Greta Grape, Piper Peach, Bianca Bubblegum, Callie Birthday Cake, Rory Blueberry, and Maya Watermelon, who now have lip gloss superpowers they use to protect the edible city of Yummi-land. The doll's appearance is more chibi-ish, which is definitely cute, just not my personal taste, but it does translate well to the accompanying animated web series, giving it a sort of Powerpuff Girls vibe. The 2024 iteration is so visually dissimilar to the original that I'd consider them 2 separate entities, and I'm actually not sure why MGA decided to reuse the Yummi-land branding for the concept in the first place. Maybe they just didn't want to waste the trademark? Catwalk kitties. Even though it seems like a fairly obvious concept, anthropomorphic fashion dolls aren't super common, with one of the few examples being the short-lived Catwalk Kitties line created by Lannard, a Hong Kong-based toy company. Introduced in 2005, the line followed 10 feline characters who worked for a modeling agency in Paris. While the majority were models, some of them had other jobs including agent, photographer, and makeup artist. To tie into this glamorous lifestyle, the dolls came with different model-y accessories, like magazines, carry-on suitcases, makeup compacts, and work portfolios. They also had their own matching pet cat, which is a bit weird to think about. Most of the imagery had something to do with France or cats, with one of their taglines even being "Très chic, sleek, and c'est magnifique." 2 types of catwalk kitties were sold, 11-inch fashion dolls and 5.5-inch mini dolls, aka the petite dolls, and both types featured rooted hair, movable tails, and interchangeable feet. Some of the characters' looks were inspired by different markings that real cats had, like calico, tortoiseshell, and tabby, while others had more unnatural coat colors. I love that their head sculpts are unmistakably feline. They didn't take the easy route and just give them ears and leave it at that. But I do think the dolls are a bit lacking in the personality department though. Because Lannard historically doesn't advertise, the only evidence that the catwalk kitties ever existed are the dolls themselves, so we're sorely devoid of any commercials riddled with terrible cat puns. While Lannard's no advertising strategy does save on costs, it also means it's harder to get your brand's name out there, which was certainly the case for the catwalk kitties, and after only a year on the market, they were discontinued. Mystikats. The catwalk kitties weren't the only fashionable felines released in 2005. That summer, Play Hut had their own anthropomorphic dolls, the Mystikats, who vaguely resembled the Bratz with their big heads, heavy makeup, and trendy outfits. The dolls were given a pretty unique storyline, with the 4 half-girl, half-cat characters living in an alternate universe where they had to hide their true identities from the world, and on their 18th birthday, they were each bestowed a magical power. Kalani got clairvoyance, Talon telekinesis, Siva shapeshifting, and Azra the ability to freeze time. The dolls came with a pet cat, a purse, a hairbrush, a charm necklace, and pop-on tail and ears, tying back to the "pretend you're a normal human" storyline. The Mystikats weren't an immediate success, and the doll market as a whole saw a small dip in sales, something industry analysts credited to girls being drawn towards technology at earlier ages. While the obvious answer to this was an interactive online world, Play Hut decided to go in a different direction in the hopes of revolutionizing playtime. In September 2006, the Go Live Mystikats line was released and included a doll and her outfits, a dock, a handheld gaming device, and a game cartridge. You could play the game on the handheld device or hook it up to your TV, and when you changed the doll's real-world outfit, the sensors in the dock would unlock different minigames, making it a pretty high-tech system for 2006, although each gaming cartridge did only have about 5 hours worth of content. Only 3 of the 4 characters made the transition to the Go Live system, with Azra being dropped in development alongside additional outfits for the other girls. Even stranger, they decided to remove the cat element from the Mystikat visuals, going in a generic, magical girl direction that reminds me a good deal of Witch. Play Hut was so convinced that Go Live was going to be a smash hit that they immediately began developing a follow-up series, High School Mystical, that was supposed to be released the following fall. But once Christmas came around and the Go Live system severely undersold, they scrapped the concept, and later the brand in its entirety. Apart from the Mystikats being a fairly new line of dolls, at $99.99, the Go Live system wasn't exactly affordable, and regardless of its interactivity, most parents couldn't justify the cost. After all, the Nintendo DS was retailing for $150, and you could do a hell of a lot more with it. Considering what it must have cost to develop the Go Live game system, I think they would have been better off working on their website, which was subpar at best. Although, if I am being honest, the Mystikats concept might have been doomed from the start, because just taking the Bratz and giving them cat ears and magic powers isn't enough to succeed in the cutthroat doll world. Pinkie Cooper. In 2013, the Bridge Direct released Pinkie Cooper and the Jet Set Pets, a series of fashion dolls that took inspiration from the King Charles Spaniel. The line was developed and designed by Carter Bryant, the person behind the original Bratz concept, and he was inspired to go in this anthropomorphic direction by his sister's actual Cocker Spaniel, also named Pinkie Cooper. The original lineup included Pinkie Cooper and her friends Ginger Jones and Pepper Parson, who each had their own pet puppy. The brand was accompanied by an official website which featured character profiles, games, and a blog, The Pinkie Post. 7 short webisodes were also released, which followed Pinkie and her friends as they traveled the world and grew their fashion empire. Bryant wanted the dolls to be more sophisticated than the Bratz, so he gave the characters a bold color palette and more glamorous outfits. Apart from the novelty of a fashion doll that resembled a dog, one of the brand's main selling points were the interchangeable ear hairstyles, which I honestly think is brilliant since there have been moments in real life where I've been jealous of a dog's shiny coat. Pinkie Cooper launched with 4 lines: the Runway Collection, the Travel Collection, the Jet Set Pets, and the Night Out Fashion Pack. The most interesting of the bunch was the Travel Collection, which saw Pinkie in outfits inspired by different cities: London, Paris, and Beverly Hills, with the latter being the weakest link visually. 2 additional collections were in the works that took inspiration from popular vacation destinations, namely Cape Cod, Rio de Janeiro, and Saint-Tropez. And I'm kind of glad that the brand was discontinued before they could move forward with them, because my god, they're horrendous. It's impressive that they were able to make the dolls cute enough that they were able to avoid uncanny valley criticisms, but their actual outfits left a lot to be desired, with the animal prints and neon colors coming across as tacky and cheap. Or maybe I just feel that way because they remind me of homecoming dance dresses. 4 years after the line was discontinued, Pinkie Cooper made headlines once again, but not for the reasons you'd think. In 2018, artist Eddie Adams released Pinkie and Pepper Forever, a graphic novel inspired by the characters featured in the Pinkie Cooper doll line. The story follows Pinkie and Pepper, who are now in college and dating, but after an argument, Pinkie encases herself in resin and dies. Pepper loses her will to live, and the two reunite in hell, where they become Grim Reapers and make amends with each other. A few other things happen as well, but I can't really get into them on YouTube without getting demonetized. But the entire comic is available online if you want to read it. The graphic novel was well received by comic critics upon its release, and because the doll line was so short-lived, a lot of people actually thought that Pinkie and Pepper were original creations, instead of, characters made for children. Struts. In 2008, Hong Kong-based company Playmates Toys set out to do the unimaginable. They wanted to bring peace to playgrounds around the world by finally unifying 2 long feuding factions, the Horse Girls and the Fashion Girls. Advertised with the slogan, "Fashion with a Kick," the Struts were a line of 6-inch model horses that had style, sass, and attitude to spare, effectively being given the Bratz treatment. There were 4 characters, Milan, Sierra, Rio, and Sydney, who each got their name from the part of the world they were from. The horses came with identical accessories, but in their respective color palette: a purse, hairbrush, hair extensions, jewelry, and an ink compact that you could stick their hoof onto to make little stamps. Struts was criticized the second it was released, and online I've seen people refer to the dolls by a variety of creative names, like the Equestrian Streetwalkers, My Slutty Little Ponies, and Hoary Horses, which is quite the reaction to a kid's toy. More so than their frilly outfits and dramatic makeup, what really seemed to rile people up were their legs, which were anatomically incorrect in order to accommodate the horse's towering platform heels, which could be removed and swapped out. Now, this wasn't the first time there'd been a doll line centered around stylish horses. Just look at Sassy Stables or Fashion Star Fillies. But Struts seemed to have catered to 21st century tweens a little too much, which turned off 20th century parents. The ones who were actually paying. Although there seemed to have been an additional line of Struts horses in the works, the line was discontinued shortly after its launch, putting an end to the fashionable fillies. La-di-da. In 2012, Spin Master, a Canadian toy company, debuted their latest doll line, La-di-da. 4 best friends, Dee, Cyan, Tylee, and Sloan, are attending high school in New York City and have recently launched their own fashion brand called La-di-da. When the line premiered, 3 series were released in conjunction: City Girl Dee, a solo doll that made it clear who the main character was, Sweet Party, a candy-themed celebration for Dee's 16th birthday, and Runway Vacay, a fashionable trip around the world. Although looking at Sloan's outfit, I question the fashionable part. In 2013, they released Garden Party and Juicy Crush, and in 2014, Fairy Tale Dance, which also came with a horse, Prancy. My favorite of all the series that went to market is probably Garden Party, because every single look is absolutely stunning. Like, I'd wear any of them now for Halloween. The main gimmick of the dolls was that their clothes and accessories could be worn in multiple ways, allowing you to design your own look, which is actually pretty unique in the doll world, since most of the time it's about buying more. Each doll also came with a little booklet that included information about the character, crafting ideas, and style tips, once again tying back to the fashion design storyline. There was also a website with a few games, ebooks, and DIYs, but honestly, it wasn't that interesting. Following lackluster sales figures, La-Di-Da was surreptitiously discontinued in 2014, leaving several dolls that were in development on the factory floor. Thankfully, some of these design plans and concepts have been leaked over the years, although it's sort of bittersweet since we can see all of the fun looks we missed out on. Some of the series believed to have been in production before the cancellation included another Juicy Crush line that was a bit beachier than the first, some school designs that feel inspired by Gossip Girl, and some circus-inspired looks, which I simply adore. Cuckoo Harajuku. In late 2004, musician Gwen Stefani released her first solo studio album, Love, Angel, Music, Baby. The album's direction took inspiration from several places, but the most obvious was Japan, which Stefani had first visited in 1996 and fallen in love with. Her most notable memories were of Harajuku, an area in Tokyo renowned for its street fashion. Stefani said of the area, quote, "Everyone had this crazy personal style. The last couple of times I was there, it had evolved into all these different things, like the gothic lolitas, and girls with blonde hair and dark tans and high heels, like they were from Hollywood. I did a shout out to them. Harajuku girls, you got wicked style." On the Lamb album, Stefani wrote a song dedicated to these aforementioned Harajuku girls, and referenced their style in a few other songs as well. During the promotion of the album, she decided to bring these Harajuku girls to life, enlisting 4 professional dancers to not only perform on stage and appear in music videos, but also become her entourage, joining her on red carpets and in interviews. Each girl was given a stage name taken from the album, with Maya Chino becoming Love, Jennifer Kita Angel, Rino Nakasone Music, and Mayuko Kitayama Baby. When Stefani released her second album in 2006, The Sweet Escape, which was basically Lamb Part 2, the Harajuku girls continued to appear alongside her. In spring 2006, Stefani expanded her pre-existing fashion brand to include a Harajuku Lovers line, a more affordable collection inspired by Japanese culture and fashion, which basically served as Harajuku girls merch. I remember being very into Harajuku Lovers back in the day. I had hoodies, sneakers, keychains, purses, rings, basically anything I could get my hands on. In 2008, Stefani also released an accompanying line of fragrances, which was marketed with a giant float at that year's Macy's Day Parade. These perfumes were probably the big hit of the Harajuku Lovers line, and to this day, I still think the designs are super cute and would make great collectibles. Stefani had wanted to turn the Harajuku girls into TV stars way back in 2004 when she first introduced them, but it wasn't until 2013 that those plans finally came to fruition, with Network 10 commissioning an animated series based on the group. Cuckoo Harajuku was finally released in 2015 and followed a teen girl named G and her 4 friends, the Harajuku girls. Together, they form the up-and-coming band HJ5, although they always get interrupted before they can actually play a gig. To coincide with the release of the show's second season in 2017, Mattel launched a tie-in doll line that featured the 5 main characters. There were 10-inch traditional dolls and 4-inch mini dolls, but they had similar appearances. All of the dolls came with plastic charms that could be attached to them or to accessories that you could actually wear, like hair clips or rings. Their style was described as kawaii, the Japanese concept for cute, and from what I can tell, it looks like there were 4 themed series: the schoolgirl outfits they wear in the show, a Harajuku-inspired pack that seemed like a combination of Decora and Lolita style, a collection based around sweet treats, and another on animals. There was also a concert stage playset, but only G got a new outfit for that one. Ever since the Harajuku girls concept was introduced, Gwen Stefani has been lambasted for cultural appropriation, something Cuckoo Harajuku was also criticized for. The show reached its conclusion in 2019 after its 3rd season, and production on the doll line seemed to have ended around the same time. The website is still functioning though, so maybe there's a chance that Cuckoo Harajuku will make a return. Flavas. After spending decades at the top of the doll industry, in the early 2000s, Mattel was finally seeing some healthy competition, mainly from MGA Entertainment, whose brats were giving Barbie a hard time. Although she was still immensely popular, Barbie's legacy had wound up turning some kids off to her. She was your mom's favorite doll, and as a princess, a fairy, and an astronaut, she just wasn't relatable. But the brats, they captured the vibes of the cool teens that you saw at the mall, making them the perfect toy for a 21st century fashionista. Mattel first attempted to compete with the Bratz with their My Scene dolls in 2002, which had more exaggerated facial features, ethnic diversity, and contemporary fashions than the usual Barbie lineup. But My Scene's sales numbers weren't even close to what Mattel was looking for, inspiring them to explore more options in their war against the Bratz. After some market research, which found that, quote, a lot of young girls are now aspiring to the world of rap and hip-hop music, the company decided to commit to the urban aesthetic that they felt had made the Bratz such a success. But they wanted it dialed up even more. Acknowledging that their existing design team didn't have the proper knowledge of the subculture, Mattel hired Dominique Brown as their official hip-hop consultant. And in summer 2003, their new doll line, Flavas, was released. According to Mattel, the name was taken from the 2002 book Hip Hoptionary by Alonzo Westbrook, which said that flava meant style. Considering the doll was unabashedly inspired by hip-hop culture, they felt the name was appropriate, although some parents were quick to say that the slogan, "What's your flava?" came across as sexual, which I don't necessarily blame them for, considering the song, "What's Your Flava?" by Craig David, which Mattel used in Flava's commercials, referred to a woman that the artist wanted to taste. 6 Flavas dolls were released, with the crew members, Mattel's words, not mine, consisting of 4 girls, Keone Brown, Happy D, Tika, and Peebo, and 2 guys, Liam and Trey, who all came packaged in graffitied boxes with boomboxes, stick-on tattoos, cell phones, and bedazzled bling. According to Brown, the real-life inspirations for the dolls included Missy Elliott, Beyoncé, and Jennifer Lopez for the female characters, and LL Cool J and Will Smith for the male characters. Although advertised as authentic and realistic, the Flavas were quickly criticized for being tone-deaf and culturally insensitive, with some going as far as to call them caricatures of Black culture. Parents were similarly dissatisfied with the line, saying the doll's appearance was too mature, their clothing too skimpy, and their storyline a promotion of bad behavior. Most doll lines are in development for at least a year, but the Flavas were released after 3 short months, a decision made by Mattel higher-ups in an attempt to build the brand's momentum in time for the Christmas season. Maybe if they'd had more time to think things through, they would have realized what we can all see clear as day, that Flavas was a bad idea. In early 2004, less than a year after the Flavas were released, the line was canceled, with newly appointed CEO Robert Eckert saying, quote, "There is no Flavas going forward. Every year we have products that work well and products that don't. Flavas was one of those that didn't work well." Teen trends. Mattel didn't give up after the Flavas fiasco, and quickly had another doll in the works that they hoped would capture tweens' imaginations. Teen trends literally stood out from other fashion dolls in Mattel's lineup, as they were 17 inches instead of the usual 12. The teen trends dolls were packaged in large boxes decorated to match their individual style and personality, with additional products fleshing out the world of each character. They released a total of 4 characters: Gabby, a bubbly girly girl, Deandra, who loves hip-hop and bling, Courtney, a preppy horse girl, and Kiana, a punk rocker. Several fashion packs were released to accompany them, including looks for prom and a pajama party. And in 2006, a second wave was released, which altered the doll's appearance ever so slightly. Although they were marketed as real girls, I find the teen trends line to be alarmingly lacking in diversity. Had the Flavas scared Mattel off from any color other than white? Sure, Deandra is probably meant to be black, but her skin color is the exact same shade as the other girls. And with the extensions and velour tracksuit, the attempt at representation falls into stereotype territory. There was an Asian character named Reina in development, but the entire line was discontinued before she could be released, although there are images of her along with an update of the pre-existing characters. One reason why I think the dolls may have failed is that even though their clothing and lifestyle feels aspirational and teen-like, their actual appearance was way too juvenile, especially when compared to Bratz or My Scene. Another part of the problem might have been their price, with the dolls ranging between $30 and $50. That's still a lot better than American Girl, which were $87 in 2005, but the teen trends line didn't really have the prestige to back up that price to the general public. Although looking at the dolls now, I feel like that was more than reasonable, and had these been on my radar at the time, I definitely would have begged my mom to get me one. Secret Central. Secret Central were a line of dolls manufactured by Hasbro. The first release in 2003, called the Class of '04, had 16 characters, which was followed up by the Class of '05 the following year, which introduced an additional 20 characters. Each character was inspired by a different high school trope or superlative, like the head cheerleader, animal rights activist, or best dressed. The 3.5-inch dolls came with a locker you could decorate, a unique accessory, and a secret note, which was one of the line's main gimmicks. Marketed with the phrase, "Have you heard?" the entire line was centered around stereotypical teen drama and gossip, which you could only get to the bottom of by collecting more dolls and learning what secrets they were hiding. These secrets ranged from who had a crush on who, to who was struggling with their schoolwork, to who was going to win prom king. Since you got to learn more about the characters than just their names and favorite color, it did feel more realistic than other doll lines. The only problem was that it was pretty obvious that was where they put all of their creative energy, and the actual dolls and their clothes didn't look that great. I know it might have gone against the usual formula for children's toys, but I wish they'd explored a wider variety of character types. Where were the nerds, the emo kids, the slackers, the artists? Most of the characters they released either wound up being jocks or regular Joes. Apart from a pretty subpar website, their other form of marketing was a direct-to-video movie in 2004. It was made up of 3 short episodes that followed a group of high school seniors at the fictional Central High School in South Carolina. Like the doll line, they mainly spent their time gossiping, and the tone of the movie is sort of like Degrassi meets Lizzie McGuire. Unsurprisingly, the huge-headed dolls didn't wind up selling very well, and by 2006, Secret Central was no more. Bratzillaz. After MGA Entertainment released their original Bratz line in 2001, they wanted to strike while the iron was hot, and quickly launched a slew of Bratz spin-offs including the Bratz Boys, Little Bratz, Bratz Babies, and Bratz Kids. Throughout the decade, MGA and Mattel entered a series of legal battles, with one even leading to MGA briefly losing the rights to the Bratz in 2008. But before any of those Mattel-manufactured Bratz dolls could go to market, MGA was able to regain control of their IP, although their production schedule was heavily impacted. After this, the Bratz brand underwent a major overhaul, which focused on introducing new characters to their pre-existing lineup, which unfortunately didn't work out very well, and their sales numbers dipped. In the 2000s, it was all about relatability and cool factor, hence the success of the original Bratz line. But in the early 2010s, it was all about fantasy. What wacky world did the dolls live in? Did the characters have clearly defined personalities? Did they have unique designs? This switch could be attributed to the Monster High franchise, which followed the children of well-known monsters and mythical creatures in a high school setting. The popularity of Monster High led to an array of knockoffs in the years that followed, like the Mystics and the Twilight Teens, and even MGA Entertainment couldn't resist the urge to take inspiration from their direct competitor. This led to the creation of another spin-off in July 2012, the Bratzillaz, who were advertised as the witchy cousins of the Bratz. The original lineup included 5 characters: Yasmina Clairvoya, Megana Broomsticks, Sasha Bella Paws, Cloetta Spalletta, and Jade Jador, who were a group of 16-year-old girls who recently discovered their magical powers, which were represented with special witch mark tattoos. Like Monster High, the Bratzillaz were marketed in a bunch of different ways. There was of course a website, which included character bios and a few games, a handful of music videos, which never would have worked on me because all the outfits looked like they were from Party City, and there was an animated web show, which expanded on the characters' powers, personalities, and relationships, while also introducing additional characters who were occasionally added to the doll line. This included Fiona Finns and Vampirina, who were inspired by other mythical creatures while still retaining the witch motif. I'm not going to lie, I don't love the look of the web show. I feel like they didn't even bother trying to make the characters resemble their doll counterparts. In mid-2013, they did a light rebranding by adding the sub-name House of Witches, which I think they should have gone with from the very beginning, since the brand was never very Godzilla-y to begin with. One of their coolest releases was the Switch a Witch series, which allowed you to fully customize your own character from her head down to her toes. I do think a voodoo doll direction would have been better than the neon clown look, but either way, it was an interesting concept. Although I really liked the head sculpt for the Bratzillaz, the witch theme was pretty limited, and most of the time they just gave them a pointed hat and a cape and called it a day. The brilliance of Monster High and Ever After High was that they had a near infinite amount of references they could pull from. Bratzillaz just couldn't compete, and in 2014, they were discontinued. Novi stars. MGA's other attempt to compete with Monster High was much more interesting, with the Novi stars being one of the most creative concepts on this list. Also released in July 2012, the group of alien girls were, quote, here on Earth to try new things, update your fashion trends, and make new friends, We can't wait to find out what on earth is going on. Like most dolls from this time period, the Novi stars were accompanied by a web series, which was formatted as a vlog that the characters used to introduce themselves to humans. I personally think a satirical reality TV series would have been better, but it probably wouldn't have translated to their target audience. The first 4 characters introduced were aalyiah, Universe, Metallic, and Ari Roma, and by the end of 2013, 12 additional characters were added to the line, bringing the total to 16. The dolls were highly stylized, having big heads, large eyes, and no noses, making them vaguely reminiscent of that squid baby from Men in Black, but not as slimy. To tie into the alien theme, the characters had antennae, colorful skin, and wore vaguely space-agey fashions, which gave them a very different aesthetic than any of the other dolls that were on the market. Each doll had a different gimmick that differentiated them from the others, with Scylla Klops having one eye, Molly Tasker having 2 sets of stretchy arms, Nida Light glowing in the dark, and Ari Roma being scented. At the end of 2013, MGA Entertainment announced that they would be putting the Novi stars on hold, a very bad sign. And in the fall of 2014, only 4 more characters were released before the line was officially discontinued. Although they had an interesting premise and an undoubtedly unique look, the Novi stars actually weren't very well received at the time, likely because their price point of $19.99 felt a bit high considering their limited articulation. But in the years since their cancellation, they've grown a rabid fan base, becoming some of the most coveted dolls in the doll collecting community, and for good reason in my opinion, because there really isn't anything else like them. And if I were MGA, I'd seriously consider bringing them back, especially since leaked images of the unreleased Novi stars have been received very positively in recent years. This was just the tip of the discontinued doll line iceberg, so if you'd be interested in a part 2, leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!